Hey guys, what's up? I'm going to blatantly rip off Boil Eye Hobby Time today, and rather than making a prop, we're going to make a diorama out of foam and paint and a little bit of plywood. So specifically what we're going to do is, if you've ever been to Disney California Adventure and Cars Land, you'll know that up behind the Roadsters, I can never remember what the name of it is, the big ride, the e-ticket ride, they have Cadillac Range, which is a designed to be sort of look like something out of the American Southwest, but also then be the tail fins of, I believe it's 54 through 59 uh, Cadillacs. So I've always thought that looked cool, particularly in the evening. So what we're going to do is try to replicate that look out of some foam and make it, it's almost like an art piece, just something we can hang on the wall. Um, I live in Pennsylvania, so I don't actually get to California Adventure very often. But it is one of my favorite parts is that little view of Cadillac Range. So let's go to the bench and get started. I make a lot of stuff out of this pink insulation foam. Uh, it's a nice material for me to use, particularly for theater props. It's light, easy to work with. Uh, the kid hits their head on it. Uh, it's not going to hurt anybody. I sort of save all the offcuts, all the little pieces, because I'm never sure what I'm going to need them for. So I'm going to take some of those offcuts and use those to make the mountain range there. So like we'll have some pieces that we'll just lay out and carve into, and the Cadillacs are sort of sticking up at an angle. So I might put them as a separate piece in behind, put another piece here, something kind of like that to get some of the depth to it. And then I have some 1/8" plywood that we'll use as the backing to put everything onto. And the plan will be to have the bottom of it come across maybe here. Still have some up top so we can do some paint effects on the top. So we've got kind of a layered effect going. And I would say it gives the illusion of 3D, but it will actually be 3D, but we'll give it more depth to it. All right, so first thing I need to do is figure out sort of roughly a layout for it. So we'll drop these into the video as well, but I've got some videos or some pictures I took last time I was there, and sort of reference off of those and get an idea of what these should look like. So I think we're going to use this as our base because it sort of is. Let me put this up where I can look at it. Uh, so the basic thing here is there are, looks like 5. I cut these guys down already. They're kind of like that, and then the background isn't square, so maybe we'll cut this part down, and then kind of just attaches right into there. Maybe go with a piece like that. At this point, I'm just sort of laying out some foam to get basic ideas. So the basic idea is we'll carve these bits to look like our tail fins, carve the background a little bit, do a bit of a front to it as well, because there are sort of layers. So then we'll just carve this with a utility knife and just sort of cut across to make that look like the rock work. But the important thing is that it's these layers. I also want to leave this. I might even do maybe over here um, the waterfall from, I remember the title now, Radiator Springs Racers over on the side. Sort of have that over here. I think that's our good start for it. So I think I might cut these guys down on the bandsaw just to make them a little bit thinner. because it's an inch thick. And then just a case of sort of carving these shapes. Sort of like just some individual rock work over on the side here. Maybe bigger than this, but all right. Time to get loud with the bandsaw. So one thing I just decided to do is I'm going to cut these guys off to level. So I'll sort of cut those along there just to get sort of a nice flat surface to go off of. So I went ahead and cut those down, also split them in half. As a bonus, if I screw one up, I have a backup now. But I can put these guys right in here, and that'll be our tail fins sticking up. So I think what I will do next is going to be sort of come across and just sort of, we'll cut that bit. So I cut these off flat, but we're probably going to trim those down. So I've kind of used this as just sort of draw it out. And then I think I'm going to cut this part down on the bottom as well. So to carve this edge, I'm going to use a hot wire cutter. I'm telling you this now while it heats up, and then I'm going to put on my mask to actually do the cutting, because this is not something you want to mess around with. All right, so I carved it down and sort of smoothed out the top a little bit. Did the same in the back. Cut these guys to fit, sort of, but enough to get it started, and it's starting to, look like something. So the next step is just going to be sort of drawing some lines across, just to sort of break it up and make it look like it's got layers. And because it's supposed to be sort of desert southwesty, it's mostly just sort of layers of sandstone, so pretty straightish lines. Move these guys out of the way so I don't accidentally cut them. So we're just going to sort of carve this up a little bit more with the knife. So I made some cuts. I'm taking a wire brush and putting in these lines as well as pulling out some of the cuts. Going to keep doing that and cutting and brushing and just trying to pull some of these pieces out. And get these striations going. I roughed it up some with the knife and the brush. I think I'm going to use the hot wire cutter here again and just draw some lines across it just to help get some deeper parts. Maybe do some down as well, because I can look at the picture there. There's definitely some lines coming down. So we'll work on that next. All right, take off the mask. Just checking in on where we are at the moment and how things are looking. So we'll do some more up in here. A similar sort of idea. Doesn't look great right now, but once we put on some paint, hopefully it'll look a little better. All right, checking in again. Did some in the back here. Got our Cadillac fins right there. So we'll work on these guys, and then it's time for some foam safe super glue. We'll glue this together and then cover it up and paint it. Cleaned up the work surface a little bit, and what we're going to do now, find my pencil, because apparently I've lost it. There it is. And try to sort of sketch out the fins, the shape of them. And let's zoom in a little bit. And then cut those out. So I'm also doing this almost, not so much to actually use the pencil marking, but to sort of carve into the foam a little bit with it. All right, so we've got these sort of roughed out. See how well this works. I'm not trying to cut through this all in one go, but do multiple passes, each time getting a little bit thicker. And just try resharpening the knife blade just to get a little more time out of them. Pulling it off like that gives me sort of that rough edge on the top. It actually is working out really nicely. So we'll curve these guys up a little bit more, but I think the overall shape isn't bad. So stealing a trick from working with EVA foam, if I hit it with a heat gun, that's the word. Those little cuts opened up a little bit and looks a little more natural. So we're going to try that. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I don't want to melt anything, but I want to sort of open up some of maybe these little scratches and lines. Trimming up some of these pieces to help them fit a little bit better. All right, so reasonably happy with this. I might come back in and do a couple more things later on, but I think I can sort of glue everybody down. We'll take some foam safe super glue. All right, so our foam is all glued up.
doesn't fall off. Always a bonus. So we're going to cover this up with some plaster and Mod Podge and paint mixture. So no idea what I'm doing here in terms of how much of anything, but we'll figure it out as we go. And you can do that with me because you're watching the video. Going with a sandstone colored paint. Plaster is going to give us some texture. Mod Podge will help protect the foam, because after we put on the base layer here, we're going to airbrush in some more colors. And then I'll probably do some washes to add in just some more colors, because despite being basically just a sandstone mountain, there's kind of a lot of colors going on there. No idea if this is enough to cover everything. We'll find out. So I'm going to airbrush it, and I'm going to use some darker colors. I'm actually going to sort of go up, so that way the highlights are still the lighter color, because I'm using a darker color. Alright, it's not exactly even, but that's kind of the idea. I wanted to get in there and get some of the spots that maybe the brush paint didn't get into. But I am pretty actually happy with how that turned out in terms of the paint job. Less happy with the carving bits. I might have to revisit this one later on, but it's a good start. Like I said, the next step I think is going to be maybe doing a couple other airbrush coats on here. Let's see what other colors I have. Maybe, but do some also do some other washes. I did find another sort of warmer brown, more towards the orange range, and I'm starting to going in sweeps this way to get the striations in the rock to get different layers. All right, so the airbrushing is dry. We're gonna try doing some washes and maybe get some more of the horizontal lines going and break up some of these vertical lines. And what we're going to use is some oil colors. We've got burnt sienna and burnt umber. Nope, burnt umber and raw umber. So this is the raw, this is the burnt. They're sitting in some lovely mineral spirits. We're going to try and mix those up and make them into a wash real quick. This is my first time using oil washes. I typically do acrylics. But we'll see how this works out. I've heard that acrylic washes are better for blending and weathering than acrylics. Alright, but just like with the acrylics, brush it on, sort of wipe it off. I do like this really picking up some of the texture from the plaster in the base coat. We'll say the oil paint definitely flows differently than the acrylics do. So I don't want to do everywhere because I want to have sort of different layers. So we'll leave a lighter layer here and then go up above that. might actually like it better not wiped off, so I'm going to go back in and apply some down here, but not everywhere I had the first coat. We'll let that dry and see how it turns out. All right, so our terrain stripes here have dried. I promise you it actually looks better when the light's coming down from the top than flat on. And I am actually kind of happy with how that turned out. So our next step is our background here. And we're just going to do kind of a basic cheesy sunset. Not unlike what you did in 4th grade. And I have some acrylic paint. I may or may not have stolen these from my daughter, you'll never know. And I think what we're going to do, instead of doing just like lines, I'm going to actually do my best Bob Ross here and sort of put a lighter area here and sort of go out in circles rather than just straight across. And if I really screw this up, I've got 3 other chances, because I can flip it around and use this side, or flip it over and have 2 more sides. So we'll see how this goes. I am going to mark lightly as soon as I find a pencil. I'm not going to like trace out the upper line. I'm just going to paint behind it. But I am going to sort of hit the high points over here on the corners. So know roughly, like I don't want to be painting down here when it's up here. And that's about half of that didn't even come through. So, but that's just enough so I can see kind of where to go. All right, we'll get this out of the way. And we'll go with right here. All right, I went ahead and put some of those on there, and we're going to just sort of go through. I think what I'm going to do is do an area and then not even like wiping off the brush, just move on to the next color and sort of move my way down. All right, we'll let that dry, and then I'm pretty happy with how that actually looks. So we'll let that dry and then glue this down. Then we'll call it good. Okay, to do one more thing here, which is the wash. Put in some darker notes, hit the low points, definitely filled those in. Happy with the way that worked out, but we're going to go back and put some of the original base color back on top as like dry brushing, just to give some more depth to that. The dry brushing's done, so we're going to go ahead and just paint the edges with some black to cover it up and then call it good.